In times like these, integration becomes the true art. As new frequencies rise, through water, through voice, through memory, we remember the waters of life and grieve those stained by blood. What matters now is how we embody what we carry. The way forward isn't escape, but transformation through harmonic resonance. Let's trace how truth flows back into the bloodstream of culture and how remembrance becomes a living act of service. Welcome to Return to the Origin. Water, frequency, and the Nazu seed.
The Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.
In La Cash, to one and all out there tuning in with the Galactic Spin podcast at long last. And on another platform for our broadcast tonight, we give thanks for episode 44 of this Galactic Spin ceremonial experience. And a special shout out to our team in the background, helping make sure we transition smoothly to a different platform. In Lakesh, and greetings, Brother Rubén.
In Lakesh, Brother Makuan, and greetings to everyone tuning into the Galactic Spin on Facebook at the moment, because we had a Mercury retro event in which we couldn't make the stream on YouTube work out. So here we are.
Yeah, we didn't want to miss it, so we figure out a way to make this happen, and we want to get this incredible message out there tonight. The timing could not be more auspicious, being that we are just really in this new energy, in this new year, as well as we've just crossed that harmonic 33 of the past few days, which is an incredible space within the center, the heart center of the Tzolk'in itself. So we're just now emerging out of the other side of that sacred space into this now moment here. And I know we have, again, as I mentioned, a powerful message for those tuning in tonight who will get a chance to tap in with none other than Kin 38, King Etznab Shaquan El Rey of the Indigenous Water Bank Cooperative. He's the founder and trustee of that. And he's an incredible artist of high resonance Mu-sic, and we'll hear some of that as well tonight in the frequency. So yeah, I mean, so many things going on. I know, again, we had a little bit of a hiccup there. I want to check in our chat. We have a different type of chat tonight, but we certainly encourage folks to jump into the comments if you want to and follow along. Want to definitely give a shout out to Ishel for, again, helping make that transition smooth. and also beautiful work, rather, with that opening transmission. As always, a real honor. And also Delia Sky contributing those amazing Arctara tones, the synchronotones right there, arctarablog.com, if you want to follow up for more about that. So, indeed, without further ado, maybe we should go ahead and get into it. I know we're going to catch up a little bit tonight. And it's going to be a powerful one. So, let's go ahead and check in with the Earth's pulse. Yes, indeed. And you want to jump in on narrating this part? I think you're muted currently. I'm not sure. I don't hear you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I was saying that just one day after we did our last podcast, we had this major event on the Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia, an 8.8 earthquake that is the largest one since the one in Fukushima, the March 11, 2011, which is 14 years ago. So this is the largest quake presented. And well, we decided to put it here because, of course, the numbers 88 are coming in the coming days on the Gregorian calendar. And then there are some interesting aspects to explore about this date that has been named by many people, like the Lionsgate portal. We'll speak a little bit about the Lionsgate tonight, because it has been taking some steam for some years already, and we are going to kind of clarify some of the astronomical aspects behind it, and why this year happened to be a really interesting point in time. This was a mega quake that took place on July 30th. It was King 128 it was the fifth day of this first moon of the year. And on the Solkin was King 128, the yellow spectral star, right before entering the harmonic 33. So this is probably a precursor of something coming. That's how we felt it. And the other interesting event that is happening today is that Jupiter and Venus, as we can see on the next slide, are coming together. And if we go to spaceweather.com today, it says that the two brightest planets in the solar system are converging for a close encounter in the morning twilight sky. Clear weather in the eastern United States gave us the opportunity to see the narrowing gap between Venus and Jupiter, says Eric G. David, who took this picture on August 3rd. So we see first that it's happening in the constellation of Gemini, which is the twins. So here we have the two brightest planets on the night sky kind of lining up. They're going to be closer and closer, and the closest event will take place, as we see on next slide, on August 12th. We will see something similar to what's seen in the picture. But this is important because of two things. The first aspect of this is that Jupiter and Venus, in astrology, they carry qualities of like the planet of love and the planet of joy. So the fact that love and joy are so closely aligned in the night sky, well, it's an auspicious sign. And what we were hearing before in doing some research before this episode, what Kayalin Castell said, which is a shamanic astrologer that is really tracking with care the cycles of Venus, especially, she was saying that this is the first time in 200 years that this conjunction will take place with Sirius so close. Because Sirius, what she was saying is that Sirius right now is only half degree lower to Jupiter and Venus. So we will see basically if we go to the eastern sky each morning and we have a good view, we will see Jupiter and Venus shining bright, and then Sirius rising. It will be the last to appear, but they will be close in proximity. And what Kajelin was sharing today is that when these gateways open, well, this is a special moment for intending, for the alchemists. This was kind of one of those main opportunities to really do ceremony and become very aware and very conscious of our thoughts, because we are kind of planting those thoughts like seeds in the fertile ground. Everything that is aligning in this gap is, remember that we are also transiting the central column of the year of the Solkin, and this year, as we can see on the next slide, this year, well, it started with an alignment of Venus with the star Sirius that is going to happen in the future. We cover it extensively on last episode, but just here to give the summary. Last July 26, Sirius was showing up at this latitude of 19.5 degrees here in Mexico, right before the sun. It's called the heliacal rising of Sirius. And in exactly 4 Solkins, or 1040 days, we will have a conjunction between Venus, the Sun, and the Earth right on that same spot. So we made that conscious because of the thread that we are starting to map in between the brightest planet, which is Venus, and the brightest star, which is Sirius. And we already established on our last episode that this alignment that will take place, as we can see on the next slide, I think is on June 1st of 2028 on King 124, the alignment and the start of a new pentagonal cycle of Venus that will close in the year 2036. That point also is part of a larger tapestry of alignments that started in the year 2012 with the Venus transit. Is this rare moment when this planet passes through the solar disk, and it's an event that only repeats every 113 years. So the next one will be in the year 2117, and that's a moment to start measuring these cycles. So we can see on the next slide that it was on the Venus transit of 2012 that 7 Solkins later we started a new Syrian year. So there was that gap of 3 Solkins in between Venus aligning with the Sun and the Earth, and Sirius emerging before the Sun to start a new galactic year, July 26, 2014. And now it's happened the other way around. We are having Sirius rising on July 26, 2025, and Venus synchronizing with that alignment on June 1st, 2028. So there is let's say, a tapestry or a thread that these 2 planets or these 2 celestial bodies are weaving, and that we are just making it conscious here to see what messages are we starting to get from these 2 bright stars. Remember that our ancestors used both of these celestial bodies as guides to navigate space and time, to navigate cycles. So now that we are seeing these weaving of cycles, there is a larger story emerging, and we are just uncovering it in real time here. And this is also part of the alignment that took place between Sirius and the Sun, in terms that July 26th, the start of the new year, is always signaled by the heliacal rising of the star Sirius at latitude 19.5, and by the celestial, the zenithal passage of the Sun at noon, creating no shadows, perpendicular to the Earth. So those two suns, Sirius and the Sun, are aligning with the Earth on that particular day. And we already covered in our last podcast that corresponded to the day Tuahau on the indigenous Maya, which refers to two sun. So what a great way to start the year with the glyph of the ancient count kind of becoming a symbol for those two suns aligning, the Sirius and the Sun. And this is just a brief recap, just to make sure that everything that happens during this mystic column that we are navigating, where we are keeping that alignment with the all, with our hearts. Yesterday, as you mentioned, it was harmonic 33, so we were at the heart of the Solstice. So this is a really important time.
Beautiful, beautifully said, and certainly a lot to track, especially at this most auspicious moment in passage. Yeah, so absolutely. We want to invite folks to continue to tune into our social media channels. So now that you're tuning in with us on this episode here on Facebook, be sure to follow us on Facebook if you're not already following us there, and spread the word. Help us increase these numbers as we are promoting this open petition for Calendar Referendum Initiative 2028. We'll put a link to that in the chat over here on Facebook for folks to tap in with that and share that petition as well. Help us reach the 144,000 signatures by this October 14th. That's a goal with that particular effort in mind. So the more we can get the word out there, the more sure we are to reach that number. And yeah, we'll keep it moving and go ahead and sink in and tune up. And again, welcome to this new year of the Yellow Resonant Seed. So wonderful to be on this side of the storm.
Yes.
As we continue to move forward in this new frequency, this next wave. And lots of beauty, obviously, in the imagery here. We invite people to visit theharmonicfactor.com and download your own copy of the new 1328 synchronometer for this NS1.38 year. And we'll go ahead and keep it moving through. As you can see here in this image, I'm going to invite you to speak to this one. These might be a little out of order today, so I'm not sure if this.
Okay. No, we will go with it.
All right.
Basically, it's important just to remember that this 7 seed year, the year of the yellow resonance seed, is the 7th out of 13, a bundle of 13 years that started in the year 2019 and will close in the year 2032. So keeping that in mind, that we are right at the center of a cycle of 13, and also the yellow resonance seed is at the end of a cycle of 13, which is what we see in the next slide. Remember that the cycle that started here at the mystic column of the Solkin is not every year that we start a new galactic year at the center of the 1320 matrix. So that makes this year special because it's at the center of this cycle of 13 years. And as we can see on the next slide, this cycle is, like I was mentioning before, at the end of a cycle of 13 years and at the center of a cycle of 13 years. So these are key numbers because we know that the 7 is the heart of the 13, and that's the basic mathematical proportion in all these cycles is the proportion from the number 7 to the number 13, having 6 to one side, 6 units on the other side, and the 7 is at the center. But in this case, because we are also closing in 2026, which is when this year of the yellow resonant seed ends on July 25th, 2026, on that year, we also close an important marker, which is a cycle of 13 years that corresponds to the years 2013 to 2026, since we passed that other event horizon that we see at the center in the year 2013 called galactic synchronization. So in this graphic, we can see 2 cycles of 13 years, which are at the core of this Sirius cycle number 1 that goes from the year 1987 to the year 2039. And we are closing that cycle also of 13 years that will correspond, according to the fractal nature of the 1320 matrix, to the 13-year cycle that will correspond to the hand wasteful. So we see here from the year 2013 to the year 2026 corresponds to kin 27 to kin 39, and kin 39 is when the one that follows kin 38, like we mentioned. So the last year we were living that energy the entire year, kin 38, and this year we are closing that cycle of 13 years that is mapped on the next slide on the castle, and that we can see how the red dragon wasteful were corresponded to the years 1987 to 2000. The white wizard wasteful would correspond to the year 2000 to 2013, and now the hand wasteful will correspond to the years 2013 to 2026. And again, the kin 39 is referred as the time shift because it was connected to that event, the first day out of time of July 25th, 1992, when we started, or when the new time started to account the day out of time. It was a kin 38, and kin 39 was the year bearer within the new Sirius chronology that opened the time shift. So that was, what is the time shift? Well, the making conscious of the 13 moon years, the making conscious of the day out of time. That's like the time shift that triggers what Jose mentioned is the mind shift. We have first a time shift, and then the mind follows and shifts the tides. So this that means that at the end of this year of the yellow resonant seed, we will be at the start of the last 13 years of the new Sirius cycle 1. And that's an important point also within the fabric of time, because as I already mentioned, we are at the center of a cycle of 13, but at the end of a cycle of 13 too. So that makes this year like a perfect assembly point for the synchronic order to really enter into higher resonance with the different cycles. And this going back to the 13 moon cycle. We are in the first moon. In the next slide, we can see that. This is the first moon of the 13 moon year hologram, which is also a wasteful. And this moon corresponds to the magnetic serpent moon. This is a fractal map of 13 moons, 52 moons, and 260 moons. So every 20 years of 13 moons each, we complete a fractal of 260 moons. And we are right now on that cycle of the 13 moon cycle of the serpent, which happens to be also an interesting sync with the year of the snake in the Chinese calendar. We can see on the next slide that this year that we started on July 26th, and that the magnetic moon that started July 26th will synchronize, or is synchronizing, with the Chinese year of the serpent or the snake that started back in February with the new moon. It's a lunar calendar, the Chinese, but it's like the theme of the serpent shedding the skin and the symbol of regeneration that represents the regeneration of life force. And of course, today is King 133, the red electric Skywalker. We are on the 10th day of this magnetic moon. And as we can see also, we move right now, the Mondays, Gregorian Mondays, were the midpoint of the heptad in the 13 moon almanac, but since they are of time, make it's no day of the week at all. So every year we shift 1 unit, and now all our broadcasts, instead of Kali, will happen on a Gamma day, which is the 3rd day of the week, which is where we have the green square here. And this is the 3rd day of that cycle that is highlighted in blue that we just entered 2 days ago. Is the cycle of the blue monkey. We are in the second half of this 1320 matrix that started on King 131 and goes to King 260. And this cycle of the monkey is also coming loaded with important markers. We can see on the next slide that's the mapping of this cycle within the 1320 Solkin matrix. This is the 3rd cycle of 13 days of the blue castle at the center of the Solkin. The next cycle will be the cycle of the seed, which is the waste spell that goes from King 144 to King 156, and that will close that cycle of 52 days that we see here highlighted in blue. And to finish, we have the waste spell of the monkey with 3 important, really 5 important markers, which are the atomic bombs that will happen on August 6th and August 9th. So we are completing 80 years of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 80 years is 2 generations, for 4 generations of 20 years, sorry, 4 generations of 20 years each. And right at the center of this cycle is going to be what is called the Lion's Gate, which is in the Gregorian calendar is the 8-8 portal. Kajelin Castell called this gate the infinity time gate, because let's say that in reality on the 8-8, the sun is still not navigating or touching the constellation of Leo. That's something that we actually learn preparing for this broadcast. in which it's really the difference between the signs of the zodiac and the constellations of the zodiac. So we have the constellations, which are the actual stars represented in the sky, and the passage of the sun through those stars is not perfectly correlated to the zodiac signs, because in the zodiac signs we are in the sign of Leo, but on the not the astronomical chart, but the astrological chart. So in that chart, we are on 30 days that we are, let's say that the sun is influenced by the constellation Leo, but it's not really transiting that constellation. What she was saying is that it really takes until August 12th or 13th for the sun to start entering the constellation of Leo. So this Lion's Gate is interesting because of the numerology. For many people, the 88 is an important marker. But in this year is going to be unique because it happens on red resonant Earth, which is the 7th day of this cycle. And we already saw that on this mystic column on King 128, we had this earthquake on July 30th, King 128. So yesterday, today is actually the occult power. They are symmetrically opposed, 128 and 133, and basically this event that took place on King 128 may be a sort of a sign to pay attention to that red resonant Earth, the 88. I know that the next day, 8/9, is Indigenous Peoples Days and recognized internationally. And the day before, there will be an important meeting at the UN regarding Indigenous peoples and artificial intelligence, the role of artificial intelligence in the development and the right of autonomy of the Indigenous peoples. So this is the reason we are having the conversation today, and we are really excited about what King Etznab is going to share about the connections to this important date and to the Indigenous peoples, really. Seeing with everything that is happening today in Palestine and the fact that the UN General Assembly will take place in the next month, this is probably preparation for what may be announced in a few weeks at the General Assembly.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said right now. Certainly, this is the window within which to make our voices heard, and that's what today certainly represents. But I mean, this period also, I know on last episode with our sister Kin 144, she was expressing a very similar call for this window to just really stand in your truth and express from the heart, and really be in that. And so we're inviting and encouraging that in this space, certainly as we're here making this shift together. And as we continue to wrap up a little bit of our summary on sinking in, tuning up, I want to point to this one. I thought this was interesting, looking at the sequence within the is this one regarding the Lions Gate window?
Yes, because we can see here that the upper square, the green square, is the seed, is King 124, and the lower one is the Earth, and that's why they appear as radially opposed. Yeah. That means that the two portals, like we can see on the next slide, the July 26 portal is connected to the star Sirius, and the 88 called the Lion's Gate is connected to the entrance of the sun into the constellation of Leo, and the later alignment, which takes place around August 22nd, with the star Regulus, which is the heart of the lion. That really only happens until August 23rd, 22nd. But the fact that so many people are right now focusing their intentions and their prayers on the coming 8/8, we considered that it was important to show this relationship, especially because in the path from the new year on July 26th to the part to the 8th, which is they're precisely 13 kin apart, they are the only two resonant tones in the mystic columns, tone 7. Tone 7, column 7. So we have basically the 8/8 aligning with this 7/7 portal on the 7th column. That's what we consider a highlight to keep in mind, especially because we had that earthquake of 8.8, which seems to be, well, we know that all is number, and that nature talks about in frequency. And if there was a frequency of 8.8 that represented an earthquake, a movement of the earth, and on the 8/8 we will have the red resonant earth, which is also referred as the spirit at the center of the earth. The Lord Abuktikap is also known in the new cosmology of time because of being the seventh of 13 earth. 1 earth, 2 earth, 3 earth, 4 earth, 5 earth, 7 earth is the center of the 13. So that brings to this kin a special energy. And here we can see from Stellarium what I was mentioning before, which is really at the latitude of Egypt, because many people are saying that what this is measuring is not the alignment with the constellation Leo that we can see on the right. The sun is really still in Cancer. That's a picture of the sun a few hours after the rising of the sun on the left. And we see on that the star Sirius will be emerging before the sun at the latitude of El Cairo. So it's really more the first emergence of Sirius at that latitude of the Giza Plateau, 30 degree, that is happening, but the sun is still not entering Leo. So it's called the Lion's Gate, but it's really a precursor for the entrance to the sun, to the lion, and later to the heart of is the star Regulus.
Indeed. So lots to keep our eyes on, and these numbers are really something. That 8/8, that 8/8, yes, and the 80, as you were mentioning before, with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 80 years for both of those. Again, that infinity energy, that integrity of the galactic tone 8 as well. Very, very powerful.
Yes, we will. For sure, we'll keep an eye on this for the next, at least until the 8/8, because it's been building a lot of momentum, and I think we have also a full moon on the 9th. So this
that's right.
A major portal. Kajelin Castel was also making emphasis that it corresponds to the cross quarter, so it's basically the midpoint in between the summer solstice and the fall equinox. So that's also like an important reference point within the natural time cycles that we should take into consideration for the next few days as we move through this mystic column.
Exactly.
Until the 11th of August, King 140.
Exactly. I just want to put this out there for those out there who are interested in supporting this work, this service. Certainly make a donation if you can. Scan our QR on the screen. You can also find, actually, we're not on YouTube, but I'll put links in the chat to our donation platforms as well, just to make sure we put it out there. We realize if we don't let it be known, that you may not know, that we would appreciate your support in any way you can. No amount is too small, but we certainly appreciate that support. I'm going to go ahead and drop this donation link also into the chat on Facebook right now. You can make a donation through our PayPal or directly by credit card through our donor box link. So thank you. Wanted to take care of that real quick. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and shift gears and get into our Time as Art segment. I'm very excited for tonight. And we're going to open it with a little teaser into some high resonance music from the very same guest whom we will be enjoying this deep dive conversation with here very momentarily. So thank you all for tuning in and staying tuned.
From the gates of heaven. Yeah, call it the soundtrack.
Welcome to the new paradigm, where you will find the new time cells of consciousness and a new particle called Zeta 9, the energy of new ideas from planet Diamond and the crystal tone of cooperation. Sit back and chillax, while King Etznab Shaquan El Rey introduces us to the new paradigm.
Build a better world.iwb.coop. UN DRIP, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, and the International Year Cooperatives merge as one in the new paradigm on the planet. Rap God royalty, high resonance era. Let's go. Right, go to intersection of galactic timelines, where the calendars converge in a new paradigm. Time to align with the time calculation, calculated in quantum to unify the nations, cleansing the tribes and the ancient empires established by the Olmecs long before the Maya.
We're just gonna give them a little taste right now. We're gonna give them a little taste right now. We don't want to go too far down that road. We want to welcome you, King Etznab Shaquan El Rey.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, the one and only. We're absolutely grateful to have your presence on the planet at this time, and you showing up in the portal of Kin 38 is no coincidence. So, and these numbers don't lie. And so we're very grateful, Rubén and I, certainly, and the whole Harmonic Factor team, to have your participation on this, our 44th episode. You were previously on episode 27 when we crossed the halfway point of this 52 episode ceremony. Though we realized there was so much to share on that episode, we didn't get a chance to really complete the fullness thereof. And we've personally been in a cooperative effort and space offline in reality in this effort to really move this momentum forward at this time. So I just want to again welcome you here, and just give us a little pulse check. What's happening with you? What's most present for you right now? And then we can move into the conversation.
Okay. The present thing, or the most significant thing right now is what they call the ID. You know what I'm saying? The ID whip. the International Day of World Indigenous Peoples, the United Nations, August the 8th. That's the first thing. And then how we are synchronizing and moving together in unity, at the Indigenous Water Bank, people coming together, people unifying and shifting into the paradigm. We're really tuning in with the prophecies, because it was predicted that we will be doing this in this time. So I'm excited about that. And then, the things that's coming forth from the get to what we're going to do at the UN. It's just a powerful time period for us as Indigenous peoples. And I'm excited to see what everybody is going to do when we start to really unify, organize, and mobilize.
Excellent. So since we last had you on as a guest, I know we've also crossed another day of observance, International Day of Cooperatives, and that took place on Kin 103, if I'm not mistaken, 103 in this current galactic spin, and then that would have been July 5th. But talk a little bit about the significance of the cooperatives space and why that really is resonant and relevant right now to Indigenous peoples. And then I have a second question to add on to that.
Okay. And as you spoke, the International Day of Cooperatives was July the 5th, which was that crystal tone, as you say, the crystal tone of cooperation on the synchronometer. And it's important for us to be unified in the cooperative system because this was our original system, before the adoption of capitalism. So we're looking to keep the people unified and get the people calibrated to finances, resources, and economics like we once was before the adoption of capitalism. So it was a system of vast trade, for us throughout the world. For it was like at least 100,000 years of us doing vast trade all over the world, a system of economics, which was the original system before capitalism. So we had the cooperative system first, then we had a bartering system to follow that, and then there was a communist system after that, and then capitalism, and now we're going around full circle to the cooperative system again.
Mm-hmm. So speak about this cooperatives movement a little bit. IWB, as we've mentioned here, it's officially called Indigenous Water Bank Cooperative. Now, talk about the unique nature of that, being that it's also an Indigenous peoples organization. What does that mean? And give some context to that.
Okay, well, the Indigenous Water Bank obviously is it's a banking system, of cooperative economics that's that has water as a base, the water coming from below the earth's surface, the aquifer, and based upon the evaluation of it, it's water that actually flows forever. And and I wanted to structure a banking system around the original currency. Water is the original currency of the planet, so, and we know that that's the source of all life. So I wanted to structure a economic system around, the water, the original currency. And so our currency is actually water, and I always kind of like view the planet itself as a big, like huge indigenous like water bank. And now, we can utilize what we have established with the Indigenous Water Bank to be of service to the people with the system of economics that was our original system, and then water flowing, forever, and we can bottle it up and we can distribute it and we can consume it. And, with the valuation on it and the science behind it, like the water is really powerful in terms of information. So my idea was to get all of the Indigenous peoples on this water that have all of this information in it, because from the reports is saying that the water spiraled down inside of the earth. It said to 2,500 and something years. It's the spiraling of the water down there, and they say that the water, it has memory and it remembers everything that it has ever come in contact with. And I felt like if we can bottle this water up and everybody get to consume this information, we can have more advanced knowledge and information as indigenous peoples, and we can have more optimal health, longevity, and life force and living. So that's the base of the Indigenous Water Bank. Now, it's a membership-based infrastructure for indigenous peoples, regardless of what tribe they come from, regardless of race, color, creed, or religion. We just saying the Indigenous Water Bank deals with the basic necessities of life: food, clothing, and shelter for all people, regardless of race, color, creed, or religion. But it's indigenous led, and it's an indigenous based system for, because this was our original way. So I feel like in order for us to have peace on earth and have a cooperative system, being collaborative and being unified, we have to have a system such as this, for indigenous peoples. That's just like minusing all of the differences in religion, the differences with politics and all of that type of stuff. I just felt like we needed a system that alleviated divisiveness. So that's why I feel like the Indigenous Water Bank is important.
Incredible. Just for people's comprehension, I mean, you've been at this effort for better than 30 years at this point. And I want to go back a little bit more toward the beginning of your journey that brought you to this point, to 1997. And you and I have talked about this quite a few times, but there being one book in particular that was very instrumental in terms of it being instructive and also planting the seed for something that you would be very influential behind having done. And so that book being Let's Set the Record Straight. And we've talked about that. That's a book authored by Dr. Malachi Z. York. And speak about the significance of that book for a moment in terms of what it contained, and again, what impact that had on you directly for what became your purpose, really, in some expression of your purpose, clearly, that seemed to be connected to that.
Okay. Yeah, in 1997, we was on the land we had called Tamaray, and he had written a scroll, and it was on what we call Savior's Day, the Zed Festival, July the 26th. Is his solar return, and we would do the Zed Festival for about seven kins, around his solar return. And actually, I think he would actually start it around like the summer solstice, up until like the 27th, I think. So that's like from the 20th, 21st to the 27th of June. So during that time of the Zed Festival, us being on the land, he had a scroll called Let's Set the Record Straight. And so I, would always purchase a lot of scrolls and things from the festivals out there. But that one in particular, I was reading it and I went through it. And in the back of it, it had something called a drafted declaration on the rights of indigenous peoples. So I looked at it and I said, okay, it's in draft form. And I was looking at all of the articles in there. And I was like, these are very powerful articles. And I was like, okay, well, what's the deal with these articles? Like, it's, they here, but they in draft form. So me and a few other guys, we got together and we decided that we wanted to really investigate these articles. So we ended up calling the United Nations, and the United Nations said that it was in draft form, and it was in draft form for like 25 years. Nobody had ever did anything with it for like 25 years. And so, as we were speaking to them at the UN, it was like, well, it's not legal. It's not a legitimate document. And I say, so what we need to do, to make sure that this is a legal document for us as indigenous peoples. So we actually went, through the process. I had started looking at authentication and annexing and the government, Department of State, and all of these different things. And I started getting parts of those articles annexed before it was actually legal. So around like 2007, the United Nations decided that they was going to present it after we pushed for it to be something legal for indigenous people. They decided that they was going to ratify it in 2007. I think it was September the 13th. It was actually September the 13th, 2007, when they decided that they was going to ratify it, and they presented it to the different countries that have multilateral treaties with them. And during the time, I think President George Bush was the president, and he didn't sign on to it on behalf of the United States at the time. So we was like, okay, well, we had it filed and annexed by the Department of State. Colin Powell was the Secretary of State at the time, and we had it ratified and annexed by the United States Department of State at that time. But it was only portions of the articles. It wasn't the whole thing, but it was legal for us because I utilized it to do a lot of different things. And we can kind of get into that part of it later. But the most important thing was in 2007, it was presented. The United States didn't sign on to it, didn't ratify it under George Bush. And then they presented it again. The UN presented it again in 2010 while Barack Obama was president, and Barack Obama actually signed it. So that's when it became, an agreement with the United States is signed on to for indigenous people. So that's kind of like how that started in 1997 up until 2010. And that was the same year that I also established the Indigenous Water Bank in 2010.
Absolutely. Just to give folks a background, just to appreciate the scope of work and time and coordination that's gone into what we now see as the IWB Cooperative. Now, here we are 15 years into that. And as you and I have also talked about, these things happen in waves. You hear us talk about the wave spells and these wave cycles. So certainly there was a wave between 97 and 2010. That's a 13-year window. And then we know there's this other 13-year window if we go from 2012 to where we are currently. There's a 13-year window there as well. So it seems to those of us who've begun to come together in the private, behind the scenes, and learn about this effort that you've really put so much time and energy towards, and how we can all come together to build a better world. Now, even that terminology, build a better world, speak about that a little bit, just in the context of where that was initiated or introduced in 2012 in terms of cooperative enterprises and that initial sort of phasing in of that as a new standard, a recognized standard, that being cooperative economics.
Okay, that began with the International Co-op Alliance. Okay, the International Co-op Alliance is like a federation that deals with co-ops from an international perspective on a global scale. So international co-ops, they're like a federation that basically speak to governments on behalf of co-ops. Okay, so the International Co-op Alliance, during that time, we was just going over different things in terms of themes for, the new world, like new movement. And so they was doing a number of different meetings, and basically we came up with the precepts of it, just like building a better world. And that was kind of like the universal thing for international co-ops, and the International Co-op Alliance would begin speaking, pushing for that, because they was the ones that actually went to the United Nations on behalf of us as co-ops in the year 2012 with the whole Build a Better World thing. To see, was the United Nations going to grant us a decade, because we wanted a full decade to develop the cooperative system that we knew was supposed to be, based upon the prophecies, so the new system in the new world, it was about this cooperative system reemerging. So in 2012, the president at the time of the International Co-op Alliance was Miss Pauline Green, and she's in this book called it's a co-op book that she's in. I have it in here somewhere, but all of the things were about just the co-ops coming together, the international ones and the ones that were being internationally recognized. So she went to the UN on our behalf, and the United Nations granted us a full decade to develop the type of system we saw fit for ourselves as a co-op. So that from 2012 to the year 2022, that was the first decade we was granted a full decade. And obviously the Indigenous Water Bank had its acknowledgement and recognition with that. The UN gave us a badge and a number for as a co-op to utilize the banners and everything for the co-op movement. And we were grateful for that, and we was like, okay, we well on our way. And we started building in 2012 real heavy on a global scale. I was pushing for a whole lot of things. There was a lot of co-op conferences. I was going to DC a lot, and one of Barack Obama's close right-hand partners, his name was Shaka Fatah. He was a former congressman from Philadelphia. And there's a video that I have on YouTube where we was at a conference together in DC, and they tell you about the groundbreaking laws that was being implemented for co-ops in the U.S. Congress. So from the International Co-op Alliance, the United Nations, and then down to the U.S. Congress. And President Barack Obama was also a part of that as well, where we was getting these different things passed. And the law for co-ops was one. Food solidarity, as alternative food and alternative medicine for Indigenous people. So we pretty much got all of those things signed in the law with the United States under President Barack Obama. And that's, I felt like was important for us to be able to implement what we knew was important for the new world, because we need all these different things. We need food solidarity. We need a system of economics that we can operate from. We need to know banking, commerce. We need to have a system that works for us outside of public policy and capitalism. So that was my thing. My focus was pushing for us to have everything that we needed to be autonomous and independent. So that's kind of like how that happened.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Along those lines, and maybe we want to get into a bit of the materials. I know we have some materials to share on screen, but maybe this will help us get into that conversation as well. As we hear the term Indigenous Water Bank, we hear, and also maybe for listening audience, just for clarification of terms, Indigenous is a term that people are hearing more and more these days. But speak a little bit about that word in particular, or that identity, because that's very important for people to, I think, have a better comprehension around the identity of being so-called Indigenous. Talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Well, the original word for Indigenous, according to the Nuwbun Olmec people, is Mahulas. Okay. Mahulas means the firstborns of nature. So, I would take the term, and I was probably the person that was introducing the term, like Indigenous to a lot of the world, because my first lecture I ever did was called "What Does It Mean to Be Indigenous?" And I think that was around like 2003. My first lecture I did was called "What Does It Mean to Be Indigenous?" And I had the Black Panthers here, and a lot of people in the city of Atlanta. People didn't really know, what it actually was, and then how it actually applied to us. Because I was always really deep in the Indigenous knowledge, because not just Tamaray from 97, but, in my childhood, my grandfather always told us that we were Black Seminoles, and I played football for the Seminole Indians, and I used to swim in Lake Seminole every Sunday. We always knew that we were indigenous peoples, but when in 97 came, it became more like prominent in my life, like with King El Rey or Dr. York breaking things down. But the term indigenous was for the firstborns of nature, and then I started decoding the word indigenous as in the genes of us. That which was in the genes of us. So I was the first person to do that with the word, and then started to break down the genealogy, the seed types, from the origin on down, so from the Nazu black seed, to the Namu seed, and then the Hamu seed. Those were the three, seeds that were supposed to be together. So you had the Nazu black seed that mixed with, the Namu seed, which is the yellow seed, to produce the brown seed. That's the Hamu seed. So those were, I was trying to connect the dots with indigenous peoples who were supposed to be together from the original seed, the firstborns of nature, and then the mixing to produce the other strands and the other tribes who were actually indigenous peoples as well, who were supposed to be unified and being together.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, obviously. I wonder if at this time, if it's all right if I switch screens, we bring on the presentation materials. I just have organically gotten into the conversation with you because there are a lot of questions for people out there tuning in and hearing about this possibly for the first time, but also for people who did tune into the first episode we had with you. We can see here the promo for it. That was episode 27. Excuse me. And it was powerful because we were looking at systems change, synchronicity, and the mother culture. And so what we really want to do right now is a continuation of that exploration. I want to thank you for providing some of that background insight into what you've been up to and where it's coming from, so people can really appreciate this is not an upstart thing. This is long established in terms of precedents made and really getting law established. I mean, I think that's one of the bigger pieces here, is recognizing that you've had a very direct part to play in what has now become the outcome of the ratified UN DRIP. So that's a big deal for folks. And I want to encourage people to do their own research. You can look up. There's plenty of information online about the Declaration on Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And in that document, you'll find a lot of very important context for what we're going to also talk about here, I would say. So I'm going to move through this a little bit. This was, again, part of the initial conversation that you were presenting to us. So everybody does know you are Etznab, King Etznab, Shaquan El Rey. And so Etznab, the mirror, is very obviously significant to you. But I want to ask you to take it over, as you would like, and I'll be happy to guide it with you. And let me know if there's anything in particular you'd like me to read as we move through this, and provide a bit of a recap. But I also want to be able to get up to speed with where we were last time and just pick up from there if possible.
Well, I guess, when we spoke about it, you can start, I guess, from the beginnings of it, and then we can kind of skip through, because some parts of it we didn't cover, or we was kind of like in the middle of it. So you can kind of start there, and then I can do a little bit of commentary around the paragraphs if necessary, just for further explanation. So the parts that you read is fine for the the audience, like we're doing class. So I usually do it like that. So you're reading little portions of it and make sure that the listening audience is getting clarity on all the different parts that we're talking about.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and jump right in just as we're here on the page. And you can, again, let me know if I can forward or if you want me to pause as we do this as well. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So just for clarity, the Etznab glyph is 4 galactic directions of as above, so below, and so within, and so without. It is literally 4 galactic step pyramids connecting in all 4 directions. Glyph 18 becomes the number 9 when added together. According to the Nuwbuns, Nuwbun Naat, Nuwbun
Nuwbun ads, Nuwbun ads. So
Ad.
that's how you say it with an S, ad, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how you say like the words plural in the Epi-Olmec language. Or Nuwapik is also, it's ad, ANT. So Nuwbun ads. So that's how you say Nuwbuns with an S.
Nuwbun At, the Hall of Mirrors, is the highest school of the mystery schools, thus being called endlessness from the northern skies. The original and or first order of things came by way of the star people from the northern skies, which later began with the red earth people, where everything begins, with Imish being red, Ik being white, Akbal being blue, and Khan being yellow. However, on the original Nuwbun calendrics, it was white first, red, yellow, and blue. Traveling counter. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, traveling counterclockwise. I'll let you finish that. But yeah, it was a calendar. It was a 12,000-year-old calendar before the Habdazoken and the long count was actually reestablished, and we'll kind of get into that. So it was white. So when we say counterclockwise, so you'll know the white is north, and then it goes east to the red, and then it goes south to yellow, and then it goes to blue. So that's why the Hunab Ku looks like the number 9. So that little piece in the center is north up in the middle, that center piece, and it comes out and it goes counterclockwise and forms the number 9.
Indeed. All right. And we can see that shape there in the example of the Hunab Ku in that art design. Yeah. Okay. And let's talk about Chichen Itza a little bit, and this being a 9-level step pyramid. This was also the natural order of evolution. The word Nuwbun Ad simply means messengers and or angels of God. They were the original Tahites of the 9th element. These were people with 9 chakras, radial plasmas, and 9 ether who traveled here from the 9th dimension. The original architects of the 9-step pyramids, which can be seen on the pyramid of Chichen Itza.
Yeah, so those 9 steps were for the that pyramid in particular was dedicated to Quetzalcoatl, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But the most important thing is understanding the 9 steps for the 9 worlds, and what it was intended. So I break it down like later in the scroll. So we'll go into that in a little bit.
All right. And so Cradle of Civilization began in approximately 9 main locations: Mu, Utla, Atlantis, Lemuria, Shunukpa, Shurukpak, Eridu, Hyperborea, Uruk and Ayanus, Ta-Nehisi or Ta-Nehisi, and Wakanda.
Ta-Nehisi.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ta-Nehisi and Wakanda. Yeah, so this is just to show like where the cradle of civilization, pretty much if you look at it, you can see that it's kind of like a puzzle. You can see it split or separated, but you can see that it all goes together like a puzzle because it was once together in what they call Pangea, all in one. So you got Mu and Central America, South America, all of this was the cradle of civilization from Australia. All of that was a part of that one Pangea hub where basically civilization actually began and then spread out from those territories and those locations.
Mm-hmm. Primarily the Americas and its surrounding islands is where you found the original peoples, along with Mesopotamia. In essence, the Middle East and let me see here. America, Amariki, and Tamaray. All right. I'm reading this for the first time, by the way, out loud. So bear with me, y'all. All right.
Those were like different terms in the, America, is basically just means like the land of the serpents or the dragons. And then you have Amariki, and then you have Tamaray, which is the land of the frogs. And then the, what's the other one? The land of the beloved. Tamaray just basically meant land of beloved. So that's why they call a place like land of the serpents or dragons, or land of the frogs, and then land of the beloved. Those were like the original indigenous terms that was used to define where we are at.
Incredible. So notice the technology of the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, and the Olmecs Toltecs were the same. I see they're styling with their handbags. Now talk about that handbag. I know it's not just any kind of ordinary handbag. Tell us about the handbag.
Yeah, so the Solartron, they call them the Solartron handbags, and you will see that in a number of different cultures around the world. And the elites are the ones that carry, those bags. Now, there's a number of different things concerning the bags, but they utilized it for one in one of the tablets that talk about communications, like almost like telecommunications, or communications for time travel as well. So when you see people like Quetzalcoatl, you'll see him below there, where he has the bag inside of a ship, where he has a dragon above him, and they were time travelers. So obviously, like, these elite masters and wizards and people who were on the planet, like the shamans, the wizards, and the karamas, they were elite people who actually had these handbags of technology for time travel. And they were all also in communications with each other, because you find it here in Central America. You get the Toltecs actually having it, the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, the Assyrians. You see a lot of the elite cultures who were actually connected with the same handbag of Solartron technology. Now, with those bags, it's a lot of different things that they talk about. They were able to do with these bags, with this technology. I haven't seen it in modern day, but these bags were for like sacred wisdom. They had a cosmic significance as well, and time travel, and it had something to do with moving different objects as well. I think like with like levitation and moving different objects in the society, but only the elites were the one could have these actual bags, these Solartron bags. And the elites and shamans and wizards was also the ones who could only like speak encode certain codecs in certain language. So they had like their own little like secret society kind of thing of elite masters in the world connecting with those bags.
Since they were on that Baghdad for real.
Yeah.
Okay. That's funny. All right. So in Sumer, according to the Nuwbun tablets, better known as the Babylonian tablets, it was said to be 432,000 years from the beginning of creation to the great flood of Utnapishtim, Noah. The word Utnapishtim translates as he who saw life, and he was of the royal bloodline of the Olmec Nuwbun people, Utnapishtim. So was Zu of Mesopotamia, who can also be found in Mesoamerica. The word Meso just means middle, and King Zu was in the middle of kingdoms in both locations. In fact, Zu is where the original Aztecs get the name Zu-Aztec from. Long before the Maya, the Aztecs, Incas, and the likes, these Olmec Nuwbun people were in the Middle East, the Americas, and Asia. This is something many have tried to hide for decades. Utnapishtim, or Noah's bloodline, can be traced to the Amalekites of Jerusalem, Lamanites of the ancient Americas, and Jaredites, or the Olmecs, according to some sources. In addition, and just as important, to the Rashunad of Lamanai in Belize.
The Lamanai, so you had the Lamanites, or what they call the Lamanai. So you'll see those places in Belize where you see the same broad nose, thick lip, the Olmec people. So the Mulekites, the Jaredites, the Lamanites or Lamanai was the bloodline of Noah here in the Americas from Mesopotamia.
Okay. So again, looking at these features, the same broad nose and thick lips can be found throughout the world. These features and bloodlines cannot be mistaken. The mother culture of civilization is clearly the Nuwbun people. Clearly. This is something of which has been a secret in secret societies for many years and has been exposed by yours truly, being King Etznab, for a number of years now as well. These things have been known for a very long time, and people are just coming into the realization of it. People such as Walt Disney, Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby clearly have known about the Nuwbun Olmec people for years. This can be seen in their hijacking of the culture to produce their comic book characters, such as X-Men, Shuri, Black Panther, and even their National Treasure Book of Secrets. X-Men are nothing more than she-men from the She clan dynasty wearing helmets. Now let's take a moment and look at that. So we see the clear depiction. You want to speak on that, Eddie?
Well, yeah, I mean,
the picture 1,000 words.
Yeah, Jack Lee and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby from Disney, all of them, they've been had the information about the Nuwbun Olmec people, and that's how they was creating their characters in the comic books. So when people was talking about X-Men, I was exposing that the X-Men was XI, which is the she-men, and they, showing they superheroes with the helmets and everything of the Olmecs on them. And I just started exposing how much of the culture was actually being hijacked by these Freemasons who actually knew who the Nuwbuns were, and they had this all of this stuff archived all throughout the UK and different places. And I just started exposing that, when I would see different things come out in these movies and with cartoons and all of that, and I was just saying, like, look, y'all, they done hijacked the culture. And they selling it back to us, basically.
Wow. So let's keep it moving. They stole Wakanda from America and are now saying it's a mythical place in Africa. However, we all know that there are no jaguars in Africa, and we all know that there are no mounds in Africa, don't we? So let's talk about this here, this physical photo evidence. The black jaguar panther mounds in Wakanda, Wisconsin.
Yeah, so you had a number of Wakandas here in the Americas. You have Wakanda in Kansas City. You have Wakanda in Oregon. You have Wakanda in Wisconsin. Just like Teotihuacan, and like in South America, they initially they were calling them Wakas, but Wakanda just means spirit waters. So they was always building these mounds and these pyramids. And actually where that is in Wisconsin, it was actually 3 jaguar mounds there, but the other 2 you can't see because now they're underwater. But it was actually 3 jaguar mounds there in Wisconsin for the jaguar people here in the Americas of the Wakandas that they have here.
Wakanda and Wakanda Lake in Kansas. Everything was stolen and sold back to us in comic books and movies. In 2007, Disney did a movie called National Treasure Book of Secrets. And the movie was about treasure hunters finding the Olmec City of Gold here in the Americas, particularly the Black Hills, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's right. Let's go get Rubén back in. He dropped off momentarily. Let's bring him forward. Okay.
Sure. Welcome back. Excuse me for a moment. Let me use the restroom quick.
Sure. Okay, sure thing. Yes. Brother Rubén.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're taking a pause for nature break at the moment.
Yes.
As we continue to navigate this conversation together. Yeah.
Yes, we had a little bit of a power outage here.
Okay.
We connected.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah. So provide some feedback yourself, just from what you're hearing so far. Obviously, we're just getting into it, but would love to hear any reflections you have as we wait for King to return.
Yes, well, we are all, I think we are all learning here part of our story or history that we are just starting to uncover, which is these original seeds that King Etznab is just starting to introduce us to, which is basically a whole different narrative to what we have been told. So it's just interesting to track the source, well, the sources, because it's not just one, the sources of these original seeds, so that we can trace back our ancestral memory and connect with that root, which is so important right now. And I love the breakdown of the term indigenous, which is in the gene of us. I think that's a beautiful way of summarize this search for our indigenous roots. So let's keep the conversation going, because it's really interesting, everything.
Absolutely. Welcome back, King.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right. Yes, indeed. So as we keep going, we were talking about that National Treasure movie, the second one, 2007. I know Michelle and I watched that recently. We'd seen it a couple of times, but really, again, like it's very overt what they're pointing to and what they point to in cinema, but usually it's presented as a movie, so we don't oftentimes make that connection. But then at the same time, they're putting these clear facts in your face, just through the form of Hollywood and cinema. So again, these Disney's and these other companies and conglomerates have long known a lot of this information. And so we have the Olmec City of Gold and plank in that 2007 movie. This was a big part of it, finding that plank on the inside of the desk in the Oval Office of the White House. And it goes on to say the movies Black Panther 1 and 2 are just more hijacking of or from the Black Jaguar Knights of the Shaquan dynasty Olmec people. The female Black Panther, Shuri, was stolen from She-Ra. Again, that word she, X-I, pronounced she, and She-Ra. They only changed 2 letters in the name. Princess She-Ra in the 1985 cartoon was also stolen from Olmec culture. According to the Olmec Nuwbuns, She-Ra was the original name of the Sirius star system, and Princess She-Ra was scheduled to return on December 21st, 2012. Now, the only question would be were they correct? Talk about this a little bit. This is very interesting, the December 21st, 2012, and what that means to you personally, King.
Yeah, well, obviously, and I think you are going to be there on the 13th, and the location where the date is actually there. That was a Nuwbun prophetic date, and according to the tablets, you got a few of them. The tablets, the way they say tablet is Lohu, and the Lohu ad or the tablets. It has the prophecy that there's a return of the princess, and I go through I break it down in this scroll that I wrote called the Olmec Oracle of Mirrors, where I was doing the predictions of what was to take place, and just like the conjunction you said, in between Jupiter and Venus, okay, that junction can be researched on March the 15th of 2012. March the 15th, 2012, you had a similar conjunction of Jupiter and Venus in that way. And that was this day that I planted the seed for my daughter, She-Ra. But I wrote this scroll in 2011 and predicted that my daughter was going to be born December the 21st, 2012. in that particular scroll.
And as we can see the image of your daughter on the screen, the evidence thereof, predicted and born on December 21st, 2012. So, fulfillment of prophecy. I also want to back up and say, too, the fact that you were able to establish the Indigenous Water Bank in 2010 before the closing of the cycle is important to note, because we needed those solutions implemented before the closing of the cycle, obviously. So it bears even greater significance that you had it established in 2010, well before the closing of the cycle on December 21st, 2012, or the beginning of the new cycle.
Yep, and I was on a mission with that as well, because before I did that, if you go back to the documents I was on all the empire stuff and the stuff that I showed y'all in 2008. So I did all of like the empire building stuff, all of the indigenous stuff, and I did a royal proclamation that I had filed in the courts in 2008 for the claims of all of these things. And then 2 years after that, 2010, I said, well, we need our water rights, we need the banking system, a system of economics as we move into 2012. And that's when I created the Indigenous Water Bank.
Incredible. So again, the original vine and bloodline is still intact. Disney's Black Panther and Wakanda was stolen from Wakanda in Kansas, Wisconsin, and Oregon here in North America. This is true Native American history, not African history. This was exposed by Etznab years ago, and much more shall be exposed as time progresses. So here we again have Olmec black jaguar from thousands of years ago, the one in stone, and then the depiction, the illustration, the Olmec jaguar is the real Black Panther. Again, not African history at all. For many years, I have told the world that my family was not descendants of Africans or descendants of slaves. My ancestry, my ascendancy, rather, has been that of royalty and black nobility. Furthermore, I have also proven this to be true over the years and haven't heard people say anything about my claims yet. For years, I've been telling the world that Wakanda, Utla, Atlantis, and Lemuria were three of the Olmec Nuwbun empires, which could be found right here in the Americas, in particular North America, just as the jaguars are originally native to North America, not Africa. Atlan, the word ATL or Atl, meaning water or waterfall, and Atlanta, in particular the state of Georgia, Florida, and Cuba, was once a part of Atlantis. The world now knows that Cuba is not very far from Miami, Florida, and was once a part of the Americas. In 2001, the discovery of an underwater city found in Cuba has somewhat provided proof of this, as the same step pyramids found in Central America can also be found in Georgia, Florida, and Cuba. However, they are still hiding the ones in North Georgia and Florida. Nevertheless, they will eventually be revealed to the public. LiDAR technology has already uncovered them in Crystal River, Florida, and in multiple places in Georgia, which happens to be where you're physically located, King, just for the reference for people out there. North of Atlanta, right there near the waterways and the mountains and everything. Now, according to the reports from Cuba, the underwater city they found is more than 700 feet deep, and according to the reports, it would have taken 11,000 years for the underwater city to be where it is in the ocean, and they still don't know how old the city really is. Now, this is what we're looking at. Speak about what we see here in the image a little bit.
Okay, you got Yonaguni in Japan. You have those step pyramids there that they found, the underwater city there, and then the step pyramids right there in the ocean, in the Atlantic Ocean in Cuba. So And most people, like I said, they know that Miami and Cuba, like a lot of people swim from Cuba into Miami, Florida all the time. But we're just showing the same step pyramids and the same cities being connected from Japan and Asia. Same thing in Central America, right here in North America. So we're just making sure that everybody comprehend that all the original pyramids and the cities were in step pyramid format. Those were the original cities that were built by the same people.
Now, this here, I mean, it says monument, so I'm just curious, and the scale of the person there as well, that kind of makes them look giant. But I'm assuming this is some kind of a replica. Is this like a replica of it, or what are we looking at technically? Because you see the scale of the scuba diver. So
yeah, what they with that image, they had some type of technology they use. It was like this equipment that they sent really, really deep down into the ocean. They had I guess the guy like in this kind of machine that they sent down into the ocean, and then I think he got out of the machine that he was in. So they lowered some type of machine down there, and he was in the machine, and I think he got out of the machine as a scuba diver.
Okay.
In that location. So it was something like that they had.
Okay. Yeah, I'm noticing the shape, though, obviously similar around the world. Why do they all look so similar? As previously stated, all the original pyramids were step pyramids. The oldest pyramid in what is called Egypt today is the Pyramid of Zoser. According to his family lineage, he was another Olmec Nuwbun sent into the areas of Egypt to build his own empire in the likeness of Pyramid Valley in Peru. Okay, and we can see the satellite image of Pyramid Valley in Peru. Again, the oldest pyramids in Egypt are not the pyramids of Giza. The pyramid of Zoser is the oldest pyramid in Egypt, and the pyramids in Peru are older than the pyramid of Zoser.
Yep, that's Pyramid Valley over there, and they show like I mean, you can see it's really vast, a whole lot of pyramids on that coastline of Peru because of where the Nuwbuns built and how they traveled from Chile. And I break this down from Chile all the way up to Canada. So on that whole Pacific coastline, when we show that map from that Pacific coastline all the way up to Canada, across the top of Canada, down the Atlantic coastline, down into Florida and the Caribbean. So that's how they built, on the coastline, many thousands of years ago, and left these the footprint and the blueprint for everything.
Clearly, the Olmec Nuwbun people were the most impactful and had the most cultural influence, more than all other indigenous cultures. According to the archives records of the Nuwbuns, the Olmecs built all the way from Chile on the Pacific coast up to Canada, and from Canada down the Atlantic coast into Florida and the Caribbean, as you were just stating. So forget the idea that these people were just in just one small area in Central America. They were clearly here in the state of Georgia with royal tombs, petroglyphs, and their writings can be found in Itula and the Etwa mounds, the Americas Revealed. Talk a little bit about that with us.
Okay. Yeah, they have these mounds out here called Etwa or Itula. The word Itula just simply means motherland. And if you can look in Central America where they find the toe text, and it'll be Tula, Tula, and they will say the Atlanteans of Tula in that particular area in Central America. They say Itula here, which is the same word in Etwa, which means motherland. So this was referred to as the motherland by them, not Africa. And those glyphs right there in Olmec Nuwbun glyphs, and you see this was researchers who had did this, and they tell you what they say the Georgia Indian kings, wore the crowns of the Mayan gods. So you see the Etznab Maya and all of that. All of that stuff can be found in these mounds out here, just above Georgia. just above where I am here in Georgia. And it's a whole, and this location was called Copal. and I break it down in the end part of, at the end of this, I talk about Copal and the history of it. And then they found all of the Nuwbun Olmec and Mayan glyphs and all of these different things here in the state of Georgia. They had a whole series that they did on on the History Channel. It was called and now I can't find it now, but it was called the Mayans in Georgia. And they had the Hunab Ku, all of the galactic symbols on this big stone at the University of Georgia out here. They had this big stone with all the star glyphs and everything on them, and it's still outside here in the state of Georgia right now. The writings, the glyphs, the Maya blue clay, all of that stuff is all out here, and they've been hiding this stuff for a number of years.
Let's talk about that a moment. I mean, hiding it for a number of years, because to admit that this place was already peopled for multiple generations would be a very, very big problem, particularly under international law, for example, right? To actually admit that this place was peopled by your ancestors, right? The indigenous original inhabitants, not according to the narrative that was proposed or projected a couple of hundred years ago about the out of Africa message, so that anybody here would be made to think they came from someplace else, so they would no longer have a claim or a right to make a claim here. Is that what's happening?
Yep, that's it. And the thing is, it's blatant now because they have all of these archives and all these records and all these universities. They got all these petroglyphs, royal tombs. They've been had this information. You can see that a lot of them had this information back in the 1800s. Yeah. Like the Freemasons and the secret societies, they've been had this information. They held a lot of this stuff in the UK. A lot of the stuff I found in the UK and different places where they've been holding the secrets, and that's how they build their society. Like the whole crown of the UK, all of that stuff was built off of black nobility and royalty of Olmec, Nuwbun, everything. That's why when you watch that movie, National Treasure Book of Secrets, you see they find the first plank in Buckingham Palace in the UK. Yep. Because they had this information. They've been had this information since the 1800s. And a lot of the Freemasons that came out of there, like Augustus Leplogion and all of them, I show all of these different people who knew all this information, and they was keeping it to themselves for a very long time. And that's how they empowered themselves too, off of the information that they had access to.
And then keep everybody else deaf, dumb, and blind to what's been happening the whole time too. So that same, but even though, as you mentioned, they're far more blatant now about it, but maybe that's also, they can be that blatant because people are that checked out.
Exactly.
So they could just be as blatant as they want to be right now, egregiously. All right. Well, far too much evidence on display to ignore. For many years, people in the so-called conscious community, could be around the world, was saying that Tahuti Thoth was an Egyptian, and Etznab has maintained that he was indeed an Atlantean. Now many of the world's scholars agree. His name, according to the Nuwbuns, was Zehuti, and he was indeed an Atlantean. For many years, Etznab has also maintained that the original Egypt, Kemet or Tama-Re, was here in the Americas. I got to get that pronunciation right. Long before being in Africa, and more scholars are secretly agreeing with this now as well. What most scholars are still unaware of is not only did Zehuti come from Atlantis, his language did as well. The language of the Egyptians, or Kemetians, came by way of the Nuwbun Olmec people in the Yucatan.
Yeah, it's Kemetans. You know what I'm saying? So, they say Kemetans, like Kemet. The Kemetan people, they claim that Egypt or Egyptian hieroglyphics, and they claim that Zehudi, who was here in the Americas, and Atlantean, they claimed that he was an Egyptian, but he wasn't. He came from Atlantis, and he was sent over to Africa to establish a culture. But himself and his language came directly from here in the Yucatan.
This is something that Freemasons such as Augustus Le Plongeon had known in the 1800s. In fact, he wrote a book showing how the Egyptians got much of their culture and language from the Olmecs. Obviously, he wouldn't dare say Olmecs because they are all taught to say Mayan. However, I predict that they will eventually change the Itza Maya narrative to the original Olmec Nubuns. The language of the Mayan, called Quiche or Yucatec, came by way of the Olmec Nuwbun people, just as Nahuatl of the Aztecs and the Black Shang script of the Chinese did. The Mayan language is said to comprise of more than 30 different languages now. Here we have a little picture on Augustus Le Plongeon, and this is one of the book covers here, Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayas and the Olmecs. I'm sorry, among the Mayas and the Quiches. Forgive me. All right, Le Plongeon has images of the languages he found in the Yucatan and showed how the Egyptians got much of their culture from the Olmec people, who everyone conveniently liked to give the Mayans all the credit for. If this is something that has been known since the late 1800s publicly, then why are the people still in denial that the Egyptian culture and language in Africa came by way of the Olmec Nuwbun people here in the Americas? The same question applies to the people claiming everything to be Mayan. Or it's a question mark, but it's a question, but it's a statement at the same time. Furthermore, the same applies to who they are now calling Thoth. Okay, let's delve a bit deeper. The Ankh was thought to be something established by the Egyptians or Kemetans, correct? Well, that too was established here in the Americas by the Olmec Nuwbun Shi people. You can see the Olmec Ankh image raised here. Olmec Nuwbun Ankh in America. All right. Now, here we go. I'm going to have to probably blow this up a little bit so I can actually read it. But give me a moment. Okay, now this is coming from an old newspaper clipping. Let's check the date, 1896. And this is... Okay, let me just get it here where I can see it myself. All right. From 1896, October 12th, 1896. First, the pyramids of Yucatan are some of them much larger than any found in Egypt, that of Cheops not accepted. Third, going on to say the Mayas developed a system that was far superior, which antedates that of Egypt, and the Yucatan being much more highly developed. So I think obviously the point here is we're pointing to the sophistication of the West, so noted by these, in this article from the late 1800s, as a good example.
Yeah, so with the and people can pull it up. It's called Prehistoric Man, and this was in the newspaper in Kansas City in 1896. In 1896, they already told everybody where the Egyptian culture came from. They go do a breakdown. They do, I think, like 6 or 7 points to break down where the origin of the language, the culture, the pyramids, how they started to develop their pyramids off of everything that was already established in the Yucatan. And I do a real thorough breakdown of this as well, on where they was getting the details and the information, but they expressed it in the 1800s and 1896 that all that Egyptian culture came directly from here, including their language, which was Hieratic was the language, and Le Plongeon had it in the book. So in that Mysteries of the Maya and the Quiches book, he has the a layout, and he showed the glyphs that he got off of the walls in the Yucatan, and he did a comparison to the Egyptian glyphs in Africa and say, "Yep, it's a direct like clone or replica." And then they tell you like the whole pyramid structure, the cities, and they tell you that the advancement of the pyramids here are much more advanced than the ones that are actually in Egypt. But it's a whole thing on that in that article that they posted in 1896.
We'll continue on here. Even though they are saying Mayan, there is no way around the truth of the matter. Now, what about the Li Shang or Black Shang writing and culture found here in the Americas? The Oriental or Chinese aspect of this only puts another twist to the whole Mayan and even the African narrative. Why? Because Chinese people are not African, and the Li Shang Epi Olmec was before the Mayan. All right.
Okay, yeah. So to the left, you have those are the Li Shang, and then you have the Li Shang script right there in the middle, and then you have the mixing of the Li Shang and the Olmecs. So you see that they have flat heads. They came through what was known as the Sunanan strand of the Sunanan gene. So you see the Olmecs and the Chinese or that Li Shang strand mixing together here in the Americas. So it creates a problem because nobody talks about the Oriental or the Asiatic strand here in the Americas that's not African. So I asked the question, how do these Chinese looking Olmecs get here in the Americas?
So how do you explain this? Black Shang or Olmec Jaguar twins, writing and mixing? How do you explain this? The Egyptian-style Namus on Chinese-looking Olmecs in America? These are not your typical Native Americans. Nonetheless, they are in fact Native Americans, and none of them are Mayan. This further confirms the Asiatic black man being in the Americas in 1122 BC, after the Black Shang dynasty in China arrived here in the Americas. In addition to the Olmecs being throughout Asia as well, remember the natural order of the seeds. 1, Nazu, black seed of black nobility, and also the egg, which is Nasu, meaning black from the egg. 2, Namu seed is the yellow seed. 3, Hamu seed is the brown seed. 4, Tamahu, red seed, and Binu is the colorless ghost strand. This is only to clear up the cover-up. The Nazu black seed mixed with the Namu yellow seed to produce the Hamu brown seed, while the Tamahu living filth man stole everything and turned the 3 original seeds against each other. All right, let's pause there for a moment, because that's obviously a very weighted statement for people listening who may, in some cases, have never heard anything about this ever before. So let's back this up a little bit, because, you know, we want to assume that people are hearing something now, even though you've been saying this for 30 years. You got people out here who've only heard this for the very first time tonight. So I don't want to go way over people's heads and assume everybody knows what we're talking about. That would be an assumption I don't want to make. So I want to ask you to unpack that a little bit, because as Rubén said, kind of when you went for the nature break there, he mentioned, you know, just the awareness of this genealogical orientation. All this time, we've all been told one narrative about genealogy and this whole thing, right? So that's been the information told and sold to most people. What you're presenting here is something new, I would say, for many people, even though I think on a certain level they have a recollection of its truth. They know, like there's a cellular memory, like there's memory in the water and things like that. Go ahead and speak to this a little bit. You know, as I know we don't want to take too long, but I want to certainly at least get a little bit of an introduction. And people can also do their own research as well.
Okay. So what you want me to cover, like the seed portions, or what you want me to address?
I mean, I guess just because, again, what you're presenting here, Nazu, Namu, these terms, like, first of all, share with people where the terms come from, because without an orientation to language and people hearing it for the first time, it's just helpful for kind of like putting that in context.
Okay. All right. So the term Nazu, means black seed or black nobility. That was the original seed, and this is in the Epi-Olmec language. Okay, the Epi-Olmec language breaks down the Nazu black seed of black nobility, and then it talks about the following seed being the uh the Namu seed, which is the yellow seed, which is the more of the Asiatic, Oriental seed, and then you have what is known as the Hamu seed, which is the brown seed, which is the Aboriginal. And I have a seed chart display of this to give a breakdown of it, what each one of the seeds actually look like.
Okay, I'm going to go forward to that if that's okay, just while we're talking about it.
Okay.
A little bit down here toward the end. I know we're kind of breezing through, but I
Mhm.
want to draw this for people's point. If we get down here, and let me know if I'm getting close to it. If I
Yeah.
recall,
Yeah.
the seed chart is down here. All right,
Yeah.
here we are. There we go. Okay.
And if you got to zoom in on it, that's fine, so
Sure.
they can kind of see it. I guess it's just about them having a visual.
Yeah, a little bit. It just helps. There we go. Okay.
Yes. So that is the seed chart. So as you see, the oldest civilization in Nazu Black Seed. And in that section also you have Nasu, which means black from the egg. So you have the seed and then you have the egg. But primarily everything starts from the seed before the egg, because the seed actually goes into the egg. Okay, and that Asiatic Mongoloid, strand, that's the Oriental strand. So you see all of the original ones to the left to the modern day ones on the right. So you see all the original ones to the left are actually in stone mostly. The stone, like, so you see the Nuwbun in stone, and then you see the Oriental in stone, which was the second seed, and then I do a modern day. So you got that modern day version of that particular strand.
Okay. I mean, hey, it's an interesting reflection. I get the past and the contemporary here. Yeah, we can see, Michael Jackson there represent.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little
That's
humor, perhaps.
go into.
That's a conversation unto itself, but we won't do that now.
Exactly.
But at the same time, again, that just illustrates the point for people. And I'll just read this here for context. This Nazu black seed was said to be preserved by Utnapishtim or Noah. He was the king of Shurupak, or the place of healing. The word Utnapishtim means excessively wise in the Akkadian tongue, and he who has found life in the Nuwbun Lagut, such as Epi-Olmec and cuneiform. So the references here again to the Nazu, the Namu, and the Hamu come from the Epi-Olmec for people who want to learn and comprehend the root and the origin of the words that they're probably in some cases hearing for the very first time today. And I know we mentioned in the
number one, they can't really speak Epi-Olmec. Like, that's a language only for the family, the lineage, and they have not decoded that language. So that language is the undeciphered language, for them still to this day, because they kept the language coded. And you'll see in a lot of the monuments and stuff where the language is coded, and only the elites, that were of the lineage could actually speak the language, have access to the language, and they kept the secrets in the language.
That's phenomenal. So, as that being the case, we're in a time where obviously this language is being revived, or I would say maybe revealed. Obviously, you're communicating in that language. you're enlightening others to aspects of that language, or that lagu, right?
Yeah, and you see oots, like goots, say oot, say like they use oot a lot. So you see like oot nefistum, you see like goot, oot, like goot. The original word for language. So they said like goot for language, and you see oot la, you see oot nefistum, and you see oot re mi, and these are tones and notes in the universe.
Yes, indeed. I realize as we go through this presentation, it warrants probably a part 3 at some point. But I'll also mention this, though. I know we talked about this. What we're seeing on screen right now, as we wanted to kind of start at the beginning, but then for the sake of getting an explanation on the seeds, I wanted to jump toward the end. But part of the whole purpose of this is getting people an orientation to the truth that has been covered for centuries at this point. And this is why this information is being presented now in this way, to help set the record straight, literally, and get people properly oriented to what is happening in reality, and also what's been covered up in reality. As we say, if we were to go back 150 years, the knowledge given the papers of the day would have already pointed to these truths. They were already being published and talked about back then. And then somehow a big cover-up came along soon thereafter, really, where things began to be concealed and covered and confiscated, particularly those items out here in California or here in the West or even down south, like these archaeological discoveries, things that would suggest the truth of what you're saying about the presence of Nuwbun Olmec ancestors throughout not only the regions, but around the world,
Exactly.
and making those comparisons. So I want to mention for those tuning in, here in the near future, we'll make a scroll available, particularly as it relates to the information we've been getting into here. Just only because in the interest of time, we're not going to really be able to unpack this as completely as I know it deserves and we would like to do. But it also, I think, is worth emphasizing again when we do publish the scroll for people, that they can actually get the scroll and take their time to go through this information, because it's a lot to cover, and it's a lot to see. I know some people are looking at this stuff on their cell phone screen, so how do you see this text and small things? It can be a challenge, but we want to make it accessible for people, and that's the most important thing. So in the coming weeks ahead, I know that we'll be making a plan to publish something around these lines that just introduces this to the audience out there. Now, I've always loved the heads in Angkor Wat. They've always, I've felt such a deep resonance with them. Talk about that a little bit as we see this right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, it was a time period where the Nuwbuns were heavily there, in Angkor, Cambodia, those areas over there. They still got the monuments, and that same mixing that we talked about in between the Asiatic, or what they call the Chu people and the Nuwbun took place there as well. So we showed the same statues and monuments. So when we were showing the Nazu seed and the Namu seed, this was also a part of the same mixing strands and vines. And Angkor Wat and all of those areas over there were they were the same people, and they had an establishment there for, they were saying like 50,000 years, that they had a setup and an infrastructure, and some of the sunken archipelagos are underneath the oceans in Asia and Japan and all those areas, but they still finding the same people, the same monuments, and the same DNA tumble in these places. And that's why when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was talking about the Asiatic black man being the original man, the Nuwbuns were in Asia. They was there. So you had Asia, you had the Americas, and you had Mesopotamia. Those were the primary locations where all the original people were residing. And I mean, you're talking about some ancient, BC dates, so like on this document, you'll see, you have to blow it up, but you'll see 1122 BC, which will show the transition from Asia into the Americas, where they was talking about the black jaguar. So that information that's there, it gives you a breakdown of the transition in between America and Asia by dates and times in the different dynasties.
Indeed.
Because you'll see one dynasty from this time period to this time period, and then you'll see they rise in another area or location following that same time period. So that's why we say 1122 BC. We can kind of get into, I made mention of that earlier, like even with the calendar, like with the Hab and the Zokin and the long count, okay, like Quetzalcoatl, and we can go to that section at the bottom. I guess we probably can kind of close out with some of that, because that right there just shows the where you just were. It showed the Mormons, like where we talked about that bloodline of the Jaredites and how the Mormons claiming the bloodline of the Olmecs. These are the Freemasons that knew about all of this. So you had Walt Disney, Joseph Smith, and all of these different Freemasons. That's how these movies started coming out, because the information was already there. So when you see Captain America and you see, the Princess Moana and all of that, they've been had access to all this information for a very long time, and they're putting it in people's faces now. They putting it out there, and I be telling people all the time that look, they've been knew about all this type of stuff. Let me see. We was talking about the Chichen Itza. I think it's closer to the bottom part where we're going into this information about what happened in that area in that time period.
Quetzalcoatl, yep. We're gonna get there.
Yeah. Skip it. And I think this right here, where we are about to go into it right here. You can scroll back up a little bit right here. This is the He-Man portion right here, where I go get ready to segue into it. So you see He-Man, and you see that symbol on the He-Man chest right there. That's an ancient Nuwbun sun symbol. That's Apsu, that's Utu, and Shemesh. So you see that symbol, and that's the symbol that the Pope and all of them stole. The British royals, they stole that symbol, and they still wear that till the day.
Oh, He-Man.
So you see that in the middle right there, and you'll see them in stone back there. You see Apsu, Utu, and Shemesh. You see it on the wall. Right there, I show that, and then I show you when you scroll up to the Pope, and you'll see the Pope wearing the same thing. Yeah, right there. Scroll. If you zoom it in, you'll see he got the same symbol from the walls up there. Him and the so-called British royal, King Charles and them.
All stolen legacy, cultural and indigenous peoples' birthrights. Just reading the words on the page. Just for the record.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it goes on. The list goes on. So obviously, Hollywood, through the film industry, they're reflecting these truths while got everybody spellbound, looking elsewhere, but it's there in their face the whole time. Now, talk about this a little bit about 1999, the peak of your civilization, that line from the movie, and what the implication for that is today, given what we see happening. And this has kind of been route of wrapping this conversation up, but I just wanted to put this here because we've mentioned this before. Talk a bit about that time loop.
Okay, in 1999, in 1999, September the 9th, 1999, or March 1999, March the 31st, I guess, when the Matrix came out. All right. We had in 97, April the 1st in 1997, Atom Ray on Tamil Ray, he told us to watch this comet. This comet, they call it Hale-Bopp. And it was said to be founded by what is his name? Alan Hale and Thomas Bopp. These were the guys. And in fact, we can come back to this page. I think it'll scroll back up so you can see it from the beginning, where you'll see this little this star. This little star, and we can read from that section, and it'll make more sense to everybody when I break that part down. Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go. Hale-Bopp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read this part here.
We can read this part, and they can get a comprehensive from this and how all of this started.
All right, I'll just go up here and read.
Well, that's the comment. That's the comment right there, just so everybody will know.
Hale-Bopp time freeze, 1999. Perihelion, April 1st, 1997. Perihelion simply means the closest orbit around the sun, and the comet was said to be discovered in 1995 by Alan Hale and Thomas Bopp. During this time, there were talks about the comet Hale-Bopp on the Art Bell radio program called Coast to Coast. There were also conversations about Planet X, most notably known as Nibiru. However, on September 9, 1999, something began to change with the comet, and people began talking more and more about the Y2K bug. The arrival of the new millennium and the world either changing or coming to an end was the major topic of discussion. Well, the world did change, and one of the first things that changed was the music to 450 hertz of negativity or negative frequency.
Mm-hmm.
This was the official year that hip-hop died in the view of Etznab, and he's been writing about that for many years. During the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you had a clear view of very distinct cultures and a style of dress. In the 70s, you had black people wearing afros, of which they proved that they were not Africans, as we all know that Africans cannot grow afros. Why? They are not your original 9-ether people with 9 chakras, thus they have flank hair and the shortest lifespan of all people on the planet. So, okay, I'm a little lost on that one. So we're saying that Africans, where it jumps to the flank hair, I'm a little lost on that one. So
well, you see it in the image, and that's why you look at the images. See, most people don't know what they're looking at. If you never seen an African actually grow an afro, because he don't have 9-ether hair, and you probably wouldn't notice that,
right,
unless you actually looked at them and say, you know what, why can't they grow afros, and why their hair is not 9-ether? Because once again, the veil of illusion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when I say it and then I show the images and be like, I didn't know that they couldn't do that.
What is the average lifespan of Africans today, you ask? That would be in between 60 to 63 years of age. This is also one of the reasons why most of our people have failed to evolve. The idea of black Americans being African was organized by a guy named Charles Darwin from the UK in the 1800s. Francis Galton, the founder of eugenics, adopted by a guy named Walter Plecker in Virginia, and so on. This was all a part of a white supremacy agenda. All right, we got Plecker there. Certainly heard his name before.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Bear in mind that the one-drop rule was based upon anyone with 1 drop of black blood in them. They were considered black or colored. It did not matter if you were mulatto, Indian, or any other so-called ethnicity. You were automatically classified as black or colored. You were deemed impure if you had 1 drop of black blood. All right. And furthermore...
racial, that's what it go back up. You'll see the section where it says Racial Purity Act, and at the bottom right there.
Okay.
You see what they say, and you can read that to them.
Okay, it says here, Walter Ashby Plecker was an American physician and public health advocate who was the first registrar of Virginia's Bureau of Vital Statistics, serving from 1912 to 1946. He was a leader of the Anglo-Saxon Clubs of America, a white supremacist organization founded in Richmond, Virginia in 1922. a eugenicist and proponent of scientific racism. Plecker drafted and lobbied for the passage of the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 by the Virginia legislature. It institutionalized the one-drop rule.
So in that 1924, he had that Racial Integrity Act and talking about racial purity. So if you had one drop of black blood, that he deemed you as being impure. And if you had one drop of black blood, you was declared black or colored, regardless of whether you was mulatto, whether you was Indian or whatever. If you had one drop of black blood, that's how they implemented what they implemented. And you see that they say he was a eugenist, because I showed you Francis Galton, the founder of eugenics. So they was carrying on this racial, this white supremacy thing, and they was responsible for selling the narrative that black people in America came from Africa. And that's how that started.
Indeed. Furthermore, the Dawes Rolls Commission removed most of the black Native American family names from the Dawes Rolls and replaced them with white people claiming to be Indians for only $5. $5 Indians.
Yep.
The original Nuwbun Olmec people had 9 ether hair, texture, cornrows, afros, mohawks, and high-top fades. Sure enough. That's right.
So you see the original, and then you see the afros, and then you look at the African, you see that he can't grow an afro because he got flank hair, not non-ether. But most people wouldn't know that because they were taught something different.
Indeed. Okay. So this is certainly helping give people a different orientation to something new in many cases for many people, I'm sure, that they haven't heard of or even considered. And there's a lot of research to people to do. I mean, you got to do your own research, your own work to, begin to recognize these things, because they've been hidden in plain view in most cases. And at the same time, with what we're talking about, these false African narratives and other things, we've all been redirected away from the truth, and made to choose some other outcome that was never really true to begin with. So it's a real duping, I would say. People are duped. I don't know what else to say, but really duped seems to be most appropriate. But, as we begin to bring this to a close, I wanted to reflect, though, more to as we are now, and we were kind of going into the whole thing about the Matrix in 99 and where we basically hit that time loop.
Right.
And where that brings us now, kind of at this moment. I mean, here we are now, literally 26 years since the Matrix. Like, that's 13 times 2. That's a long time.
Right.
And at the same time, we're also at the beginning of a new wave, carrying over from previous waves. So what we're talking about now has been a conversation you've been having for nearly 20 years in many cases. Whereas, now people are beginning to get a sense and a proper orientation to how they have been misguided or duped, and have to get properly oriented. So when you're disoriented, it takes time to get properly oriented. Disoriented for so long. And I know that's a part of the challenge and the learning curve we often speak about here as we are building a better world. There are certain things that we have to literally unlearn or disengage that are not appropriate, that won't, as you said, in many cases, won't stand the test of time.
Right.
Though this is a part of the process, and I know having you here as a guest tonight, notwithstanding the technical issues we had at the beginning or anything, just to get going. But I want to thank you for taking the time to begin to slow walk those of us now who are, in some cases maybe late to the party, though, obviously we're all here and there is a window. If we're paying attention, we're in that window now. We definitely don't want to miss this window, but it's the time to shift gears, and really make that leap into this new paradigm. And it does require quite a leap right now. I think more than anything, it's sort of like, I can imagine somebody trying to jump to catch something taking off. They got to leap to make that,
exactly,
to catch that, which is taking off. But certainly things are taking off, and it's a good thing. While we're also seeing this, situation in the world play out, we know that simultaneous to this, there are things emerging, which is a very, very exciting space to be in and to be aware of. And I guess to that end, I want to invite you to just offer any maybe closing remarks or just closing for this particular section 2, part B. And as I said, we may want to look at a part 3, or certainly intend to get that that document out there for folks to really, really appreciate love what is going on and what you've been doing and the work that's gone into this so far. So what say you?
Yeah, so closing out, we was talking about the comet Hale-Bopp and what changed, like basically the civilization, most of the civilization peaked. Most of the people are still stuck in 1999 and are unaware of it. Okay, so the artificial intelligence, the AI, took over in this particular time, moving into the new millennium. In this time period, they felt like that the civilization of humanity had peaked, and we were supposed to be at a certain level in 1999 that most of us didn't make it to. Some of us made it across the threshold and to the next phase of evolution, but most of the people are stuck in the time warp of 1999, and that's why artificial intelligence is taking over. That's a part of the process. That's why AI is what it is. And I break it down in these sections in here and show how a lot of stuff should be decades outdated, but a lot of people don't recognize it, and why a lot of stuff is just reruns and repeats, and then society actually digressing and declining rather than evolving, because they are stuck in a time loop of 1999 rather than evolving into the new millennium and the new world where we are right now and this new paradigm. So it's in this section, I break that down, what happened in 1999 and how people actually got stuck in that time loop and why they chose AI in this time period to basically replace humans because they had peaked in 1999.
Well, I mean, it's pretty evident when we think about it. It's, if you really take a look at it, it does appear that way. No, nothing really, really new, frankly. It would certainly appear that way. So on that time loop, repeating these memes and themes again and again. And we see it in the movies. We see it at a new Happy Gilmore film, like, all the things, repeating the same tropes and things like that, keeping people in that cycle, of redundancy, it seems.
Is a repeat, and then they'll come out with artificial intelligence, some with a robot, repeat, Godzilla, repeat, King Kong, repeat, Cinderella, repeat, Snow White, repeat the clothes, repeat the hippies, go back. Everything is time loop, go back. Instead of it something new, taking place, and everything that is supposed to be new is just all based upon AI.
Yikes.
And people have not been aware of it all this time.
Wow. Yikes. That's all I can say. Well, I tell you what, I want to give thanks to you for taking the time to walk us through at least, again, some part of this. But I feel like we really did get into the seed, the genealogical piece tonight, which is great, just to help set the stage for people to get that proper orientation. And, in light of that, I want to encourage people to visit the buildabetterworld.iwb.coop for those that want to learn more about this new wave and this next phase, and really that we can get into greater cooperation with each other. We want to encourage people to visit that website. And if you want to learn more about becoming a member of the co-op, a member owner of this co-op, this international consumer cooperative called the Indigenous Water Bank, then leave an inquiry at that website, and someone will certainly be in touch with you. But is there anything inspiring you'd like to say as we wrap this up? I'm going to actually play your jam though here in a moment. Anointed Ones. I got to play the Anointed Ones because that joint.
Okay.
Make sure we put the high resonance out there for folks.
We gotta put it out there.
Put it out.
Yeah. Just everybody, that's listening audience. I know it's a lot to internalize, a lot to process, but there's a new shift, there's a new wave, there's a new paradigm taking place, and it's going to take some unpacking, because it's a lot that's been done to our people over an extended period of time. So some people may feel a certain way about this information, but it's the undiluted truth of what is, and it's going to stand the test of time. And I would say just focus more on evolving and being the best version of yourself, as we go on through this new phase of evolution. So I'm not going to say much more, after that. I'm gonna let, because I know we got time constraints when everybody got to get some rest or something what it is, and so it's on you now, Mikuak.
Yeah, man, we give thanks. I want to shout out Rubén. I know he's having some storms there where he's at. He got cut off a couple times off the broadcast, but we endure. We make it through. Want to give a shout out to folks as well. As we wrap this up, I want to encourage people to, in fact, let me pull this up real quick before I go too far. I don't want to be remiss and neglect to share this with folks. As many people do know, we have the incredible activities coming up this October in Palenque. And so I just want to give a shout out. And no! Not on your... We'll come back to that. I want to bring that in a moment, but in the meantime, I want to make sure that folks do know about the Return to Origin gathering happening in Palenque this October, inviting you to join us there. It is an event of ceremonial proportion. We're not making any money for this. We're not producing this as a retreat or getaway or something like that. It's truly people who feel it in their soul that they want to be there, to participate, to observe, because the true observer effect will be in full effect, like I like to say, as we are there together during this pivotal threshold of the golden intersection of timelines. And for people who want to learn more, we encourage them to join the... Let me make sure I'm pulling up the right images here to share with folks. We want you to join the QR. We'll click the QR or scan the QR code you see on your screen to join the WhatsApp group where you get all the information about the program and all the details, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll provide more information as well if you check in with us there. And for those that want to tune in, generally, we encourage you to join the Facebook event for the Golden Intersection of Timelines. You can look that up as an event on Facebook, Golden Intersection of Timelines. In the coming heptads or weeks, we'll have more information there. And we also encourage people to share what they're going to be doing wherever they may find themselves this October 14th and 15th. Those are the two particular pillar dates of the Golden Intersection of Timelines. And of course, you can learn more about this on our website, theharmonicfactor.com. We encourage you to go there. You'll find the white paper there, as well as other details about what the golden intersection technically is. But certainly know it's a moment on the planet of alignment and harmonization where we're being encouraged to literally get into nature and get into your heart. That's very, very important at this time. So we like to emphasize that here at the Galactic Spin podcast. And I want to give a special shout out to Ishel and to Alejandra for all their efforts in the background, as well as, again, my brother Rubén, who is doing a lot of incredible work, certainly holding it down. And King Etznab, who is still with us in this now moment, and with much gratitude and appreciation for who you are on the planet, Kin 38, and everything you show up to do and to help support the people the way that you have been for many, many decades at this point. So let's call it what it is. And as you mentioned to me the other day, we are, in some ways, we have to accept, we are the new elders. So we're stepping into our role and doing our job, showing up to do our best to set things aright and to set the record straight. So I want to give a special shout out to Dr. Malachi Z. York, without whom we wouldn't even be in this conversation right now.
Right.
So I want to acknowledge the roots of the root for what it is that brings us to our point of purpose and calibration right now. So all the anointed ones, in truth and reality, we want to send this song as a shout out to you out there doing what you're doing, and the way that everybody shows up as they are made to do at this auspicious time. So with that said, King Etznab, we give thanks for your presence on the planet, and thank you for this high resonance Mu-sic that we can truly use to heal the sick out here for sure. And
yes, sir.
Thanks for your presence on the planet. Until next time, everybody tuning in, and hopefully we'll be back on YouTube next episode. But in any case, we made it happen, and we give thanks. In Lakesh.
In Lakesh.
And now, not on your back. Let that be a warning to you all.
Yo, this one is dedicated to the anointed ones, those who may have an anointedness on their lives and have a whole lot of secretly envious people pretending to be their friends, family, and loved ones.
Anointed ones cannot be purchased. Anointed ones do not sell their souls. Anointed ones are not to be touched. Listen while King El Rey pop haters like a clutch.
Raise the black and gold flag. It shows signs of my spiritual ranking. The universe assigned it. Touch not my anointed. Alright, spiritual roles cannot be stolen. They can only be a sign, slandering the souls encrypted by the divine. Make them all fold like laundry every time. The way that I rhyme is absent of flaws. Chosen ones are in tune with the cosmic law. Not ordinary people, Teflon and Rico, modus operandi, yes, I'm the man I. Chad of the Axis Mundi, blast through your coonery and your buffoonery. Born with a frequency not of this earth, connected to the crystal tone in the universe. My antiquated verse is far from outdated, and your antiquated hatred is grossly overrated. They tried to take something that wasn't theirs to touch, but I'ma shake something and pop them like a clutch. Touch not the anointed 105 book of songs with my God armor on. Do my prophets no harm before the quiet storm of the blue rhythmic. I bring the sky down on your head with my lyrics. For those who wanna tamper with the chosen sons and daughters, handpicked by the source and backed by a higher order, prepare for the slaughter of the 20 solar sun. Absu and Utu, my anointed one. What they planted in secret is growing worldwide. What they planted in secret was a bunch of damn lies. What they planted in secret, to your surprise, the universe used to make me thrive. In the year of the seed, I shall proceed. Nazu, Namu, Hamu, indeed. They can never leave well enough alone, so the Jaguar guards emerge from the throne. And the crown of the newborns carrying that helmet for the Luciferians and those that are hell-bent on stopping the divinely appointed. Look but don't touch, touch not the anointed. We cannot be bought, borrowed, or fake. Watch the universe slap them all in the shape. The all-time greats always get the most hate. You don't have to cut the grass to see all the snakes. They all try to take what is not even theirs. King got bread everywhere for his heirs. They hated with a passion yesterday. They was laughing low-key, finicky, with intents of hurting me. But today, they crying and begging for mercy. They just not worthy of my concern. All I know is I hope they all burn. It's rap God royalty with God in his sperm. Touch not the anointed 105 book of songs with my God armor on. Do my prophets no harm Before the quiet storm of the blue rhythmic, I bring the sky down on your head with my lyrics. For those who wanna tamper with the chosen sons and daughters, handpicked by the source and backed by a higher order, prepare for the slaughter of the 20 solar suns. Absu and Utu, my anointed ones. Anointed ones, stay the course. Not harder than me. Unify and build a better world with the Indigenous Water Bank Cooperative. Build a better world. .iwb.coop. Indigenous Peoples. Time. World Indigenous Peoples Day. August the 9th. UN Drip. International Year Cooperatives. In a new paradigm. Our resonance era.
Tune in with the Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view. Galactic Spin podcast and expand your view.